hearing is underway in the Nirbhaya case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is hearing the convict review plea, and the lawyer is making some ridiculous arguments. He's repeated the Kalyug argument. He's saying that in Kalyug, the age of the humans has been reduced, and Rhythm is tracking all the developments from the Supreme Court. She's getting us all the details and all the updates that Nalini has been sending. Nalini is in the courtroom. She's sending us all the arguments that are taking place right now. And Rhythm, over to you. Give us more details about the arguments that are taking place in the Supreme Court.
Sanika, once again, we hear these abominable arguments that are coming in from lawyer AP Singh for rapist Akshay Thakur. To prevent him and to get a delay in the case, once more he argues not only the Kalyug argument, but he says there's a long line of people who need to be executed before the line comes to all the rapists. Remember, this is another delaying, there's another delaying reasoning. Remember, in 2018 July, the top court of the country dismissed the review plea of the three of the other rapists. Rapist Pawan, rapist Mukesh, rapist Vinay. At that time, this person had not filed a review. 1.5 years later, he suddenly wakes up to file a review, knowing that the death sentence could be nearing because the execution warrant demand has been moved in the Patiala court. Nirbhaya's family is also going to the Patiala court after this to try and see what's happening on that execution of the death warrant that they want. Remember, all this happening when the demand for hang Nirbhaya rapist is going stronger in the country. In Tihar jail, a request had been made to the UP police, to the UP prisons ADG, that there should be, DGP, I beg your pardon, that there should be an immediate hangman to be sent here. 2 hangmen from Uttar Pradesh are also present at Tihar jail. All the convicts have been moved to Tihar jail. So as the noose is literally tightening around their neck, at this point, rapist Akshay Thakur chooses to move a ridiculous and a ghastly review plea in the top court. That review plea is now being argued by AP Singh, his lawyer, who's been continuously saying that death penalty is not right. There should be mercy shown. At one point, he says these innocent and vulnerable rapists did not get a fair trial. At another point, he chooses to say that this is Kalyug. So anything that he can think of under his hat is being said here. What we need to impress upon our viewers is the tsunami of protests that had broken out earlier in 7 years ago, when the Nirbhaya case happened, led to changing of the law of rape in India in 2013. I remember former Chief Justice of India, Justice J.S. Verma, had presided over this, and the law had immediately been changed when Nirbhaya case had shocked the very conscience of society. And these are the words that are used in the earlier review plea that was dismissed in the court in 2018 by Justice Deepak Mishra. How can these arguments even be made in the top court has to be seen. However, there is some support coming in for Nirbhaya's family this time. The government's topmost law officer, the right-hand man of the government, Mr. Solicitor General of India, Mr. Tushar Mehta, appearing in the case, is going to ensure that the review plea is dismissed. He's also being supported here by top criminal lawyer of the country, Mr. Siddharth Luthra, senior advocate, who's been present in the Nirbhaya case and been getting victory after victory in each court in this case. So as we are speaking, Nirbhaya's family told us the moment they came into court that she will continue to remain our dear daughter, but we are looking for justice finally. Viewers, it's been 7 years and 2 days to that horrific night of December 16th, and as journalists who covered the protest, there was absolute silence among the media fraternity when the case details were being said. It was a case that not only shocked the conscience, but it was a case that really led for extreme anger coming in for the kind of brutality that happened on that night. 13 days after that, Nirbhaya breathed her last in a Mount Elizabeth hospital in Singapore, and the nation mourned her death. 3 dying declarations were given by her. Today, when a character assassination of Nirbhaya continues by lawyer AP Singh, and I'll tell you something, that when this case was going on, we had made a request for AP Singh to be sitting with Nirbhaya's mother on a panel. Nirbhaya's mother immediately refused. That's the kind of insensitivity this lawyer has shown to the family with these arguments and delaying tactics by them. Nirbhaya's family said, I will not sit on a debate with this man. It's below me to be sitting there. And when we speak to Nirbhaya's family, Asha Devi ji, she says, this is extremely sad what's happening. So she says it's extremely sad and insensitive, the kind of comments that have been made by him. She refuses. I've several times in the last 7 years seen her breakdowns outside the Supreme Court. And also I remember when this case is being heard right now, the delay that have been there in this case have been shocking. 9 months after the brutal gang rape, the trial court gave out a judgment saying death sentence should be given. After the trial court order, we saw later on, the case moved to the Delhi High Court. Delhi High Court, and 6 months after that, said death should be given. Then from 2015 to 2017, the case was in this, from 2014 to 2016, the case was in cold storage in the Supreme Court. In 2016, those cases were once again heard, and the death on May 5th, 2017 was upheld. Let's also go across to Richa, who's joining us from the newsroom. Richa, you've seen the arguments that are being made by AP Singh, the character assassination. Across India, there's anger, and Republic TV's campaign is correct right now when we say hang the rapist and have a live telecast of the hanging.
Absolutely. In fact, these are atrocious as well as shocking comments and arguments being made by the lawyer of the accused, who is in fact again repeating his argument of, in fact, human beings have a reduced age in Kalyug. And in fact, his arguments go on to say that death penalty is the ultimate denial of human rights. So clearly it shows that these are all, somewhere these are all techniques to either delay the case further, and he's going on to use all kinds of means and ways and arguments to make sure that all the 4 accused get away with this death penalty that has already been in fact given. The parents are waiting for over 7 years. The nation is waiting for over 7 years. We have been demanding the hanging of these accused for several months now. But at the same time, we are seeing that the lawyer is making these atrocious and shocking comments and arguments in court, somewhere demeaning as well as disrespecting the memory of Nirbhaya, who has in fact become a symbol of hope and justice in this country, specific to the victims of rape and sexual assault.
And you know, when they said Akshay's lawyer, Richa, had referred to a book written by a policeman who was part of the Nirbhaya probe, raising questions about the custodial suicide of Ram Singh. He says, therefore, there is suspicion. Another accused in the Nirbhaya case on how he was killed or how he committed suicide. The news that had correctly come was Ram Singh, one of the most violent of these rapists, had committed suicide in Tihar jail. Justice Bhushan, who's on the bench, has said this is a dangerous trend. After trial is over, a person writes a book casting doubts. So very clearly, their court right now saying that we are not going to interfere in this. And Richa, the question that I want to ask you right now, new arguments coming in from the Supreme Court. Several times over we are hearing that this happens. Sanika, in fact, I also want to ask you, as someone who's been seeing the protest from the longest time in India's outrage, the abominable arguments being made by AP Singh clearly point to the fact that he's not going to get the review heard here or listed here. It could be dismissed, it could be dumped, it could be in the garbage quickly. We need to also see, Sanika, and remember that top law officers of the country today will be representing and supporting the demand for death for Nirbhaya.
Exactly.
Rhythm,
in fact, this was a turning point. The Nirbhaya case was a turning point as far as women's rights were concerned. The entire country has risen in anger and was demanding only death for rapists. And now, when the demand has peaked, we have the lawyer who's coming out in the Supreme Court and saying that the death for rapists is the ultimate denial of human rights. How can they even talk about denial of human rights when we know the kind of treatment they had meted out to Nirbhaya, the kind of atrocities that were committed, the brutal crime that was committed 7 years ago.
Yes,
That
in fact, I just want to break down something that's coming in from the top court right now.
Yes, Rhythm, please go ahead.
Sanika, I'm just interrupted to bring you the latest details coming in from inside the Supreme Court right now. Once again, lawyer AP Singh is making that argument that was made and spoken about on the debate with our editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami, who first picked up this ridiculous line that was there in the review plea. He's saying again in the court, all 6 people in the bus could not have committed rape upon the victim in 21 minutes. These gaudy arguments are clearly going to attract national attention again. He says she didn't even name any of the accused or mention the iron rod used by the accused. He also says the dying declaration is doubtful, cannot be relied upon. One by one, I want to thrash this ridiculous argument coming in from the lawyer and the rapist in the case. First of all, with what wisdom is the lawyer talking about the fact that 6 people could not have committed rape in 21 minutes? How does he know? With what rubbish is he saying such insensitive and inhumane facts when Nirbhaya's family is inside the courtroom hearing him. Secondly, he says she did not name any of the accused or mention the iron rod. We remember the condition they had left with the brutality with which they had committed Nirbhaya in on that fateful night of December 16. She was on a ventilator, she was on oxygen. Does he believe that at that time, in 3 dying declarations that were given out by Nirbhaya, she should have gone into gaudy details that could only draw more horror to her? And thirdly, he's saying even the dying declaration that is given by Nirbhaya does not seem to be something one can be relied upon. This is as inhuman as any lawyer can make arguments in the top court of the country. Richa and Sanika, I want to come to you again. As people who've been covering the protest, Richa, you've seen these baseless arguments are only going to draw more anger from the nation that is now demanding that there has to be an immediate hanging in the Nirbhaya rapist case.
Absolutely, Rhythm. In fact, these atrocious as well as demeaning arguments that AP Singh is making within the Supreme Court right now, in fact, targeting the dying declarations of the victim as well, somewhere again will spark an outrage within the people. In fact, he's leaving no stone unturned to make sure that he defends his accused, these 4 accused. The parents have already demanded that they to be hanged. The nation has demanded that. We have been demanding here on Republic TV. But clearly these statements where he's questioning that 6 persons on the bus cannot have in fact committed a rape upon the victim in 21 minutes. This is a very atrocious argument that he is playing out, clearly stating that all the main person who was present there, the friend of Nirbhaya, has given his testimony. The police has verified all the claims. In fact, despite that, Sanika, we have been seeing that these claims have,
In fact, Richa and Rhythm, I would like to read out one more argument and one more flash that we've received from the Supreme Court, and this is coming from our colleague Akhilesh, who's inside the Supreme Court hearing the arguments. He's saying that AP Singh, in fact, has said that she was given a morphine injection. So basically he's saying she was drugged, and how can she have given a dying declaration in a drugged state? This is the most ridiculous argument that we are hearing in the Supreme Court right now, where the convict's lawyer is making a case for the convict in a most abominable fashion. In fact, doubting the dying declaration and giving and maligning the image of Nirbhaya in the court right now, isn't it, Rhythm?
Absolutely. And you know, the observation that's coming in from the court when he made this ridiculous argument that in 21 minutes 6 rapists could not have raped her, the court said we've already gone through this, we are going to disregard this kind of an argument because it's happened earlier. The Supreme Court has said the court has already heard this logic, and they have said that even with the dying declaration that has been given by the accused, they are not going to go into those arguments. So very clearly the observation coming in from the Supreme Court, the argument that has been made on the dying declaration by lawyer is not going to be regarded. The observation that has been made on 21 minutes, ridiculous observation, is also not going to be regarded by the court. Forged reports have been prepared by the prosecution. A new innovative argument by lawyer AP Singh appearing for the rapist Akshay Thakur in the case 1.5 years after reviews have been dismissed in the Supreme Court, clearly as a delaying target and a claim topic. Now he's saying the reports that have been prepared in the Nirbhaya case were forged by the prosecution. He needs to understand he's in the Supreme Court on the last leg of his arguments, and such garbage of the arguments will not be entertained by the top court. So as we continue speaking, viewers, let me tell you the observation coming in from the Supreme Court that we are going to be disregarding these arguments that are being made here. And also the Supreme Court of India has said we are not going to be looking into any new books that are going to come here. Those are not things that can be possibly seen as we are speaking right now. Sanika, I want to ask you here, these arguments, when we are speaking about them, clearly bringing on the anger in the nation, but also activists who would be joining us, there is a clear systematic assassination, character assassination of the victim taking place.
More than character assassination, Rhythm, I think it's also very ridiculous to put out such arguments. In fact, Nirbhaya, who was battered, who was brutally gang raped, thrashed, hit with iron rods, and then she was dumped on the night of 16th of December. And when you're questioning her statement, her dying declaration is something that is very ridiculous coming in from the convict's lawyer. And this is coming after 7 years, Rhythm, isn't it? Because 7 years back, we saw the anger on the streets of India against this brutal gang rape. The conviction took place in the trial courts, in the Delhi High Court and in the Supreme Court. So there was a certain process that was followed to convict these rapists, in fact. And it's been more than 1.5 years, like you said, since the verdict. And after 1.5 years, such ridiculous arguments coming out is just ridiculous, outrageous, isn't it?
And Sanika, this is exactly the point we'll continue making for the next 15 to 20 minutes, that the lawyer has been given time to speak. Viewers, we slip into a quick break to get a sense of what will happen after that, and more importantly, the arguments of the Solicitor General that should also come up right here in the top court.